Hello again, YouTube. Right, well, the time has come to go tubeless on the Calibre. In my head, I'd said I'd always go tubeless after the first puncture, and lo and behold, last weekend I had the first puncture, and it was a right bar steward to fix because we were in the woods early in the morning and it was completely dark. So yeah, it wasn't a lot of fun. So what I'm going to be doing today is upgrading from the standard setup. So these come with a Trail Boss on the rear and a Vigilante on the front, and they're not bad tyres. Now they do actually make these tyres, the Vigilante and the Trail Boss, in tubeless compatible, but the ones that come as standard with the Calibre BBB, they are not tubeless compatible. They are the tubed type. So what I'm going to be putting on there is a pair of Maxxis high roller 2s. So these get quite a good review, and yeah, they look quite a nice tyre actually. So who am I to judge given my limited ability? So I'm going to be putting those on. You can, if you're going to go tubeless, you can buy a kit with all the parts in there, but I chose not to do that. They're quite expensive for what they are, I think, and you're kind of limited by what tape you're going to use. You have to stick with air tape, and what valves you're going to use. So what I've done is I've been out and bought myself a roll of Tessa tape. That was just an eBay special, and that wasn't that expensive. I think that was 12 or 13 quid for a roll that does several rims there. So I'm going to be using Tessa tape, and I'm going to be using PT's valves. Now the reason I'm going to be using these valves is that you probably saw in a previous video where I was replacing a broken valve. I used, I think it was Joe's valves, and it took me ages to get that thing to seal up. And I think part of that was because of the way that the nut goes onto the valve. If you've not got a perfect seal inside, then you've got more scope for air to leak out past the nut because it's simply just a nut. Whereas these come with an O-ring built into the nut. So you've got a seal on both sides. You've got a nice rubber bung that goes through the rim, and then on the other side you've got a nice little donut of rubber that sandwiches against it. They've also got a really nice little feature in them, in that the valve caps contain a core remover. So you can whip the cores out of the valves just using the valve caps. Going to be using these all with Stan's sealant, which seems to be the gold standard. So first job is to get the old tyres off, and that is particularly uninteresting, so I won't film that, and I'll pick it up again when I'm just about to start putting the tubeless on. Okay, so I'm picking this up again here. The tyre is off the wheel. Now when you strip your tyre off of your BBB wheel, you'll find it looks like this. You've got just a basic protection tape on there. That won't seal tubeless, so you are going to have to put tubeless tape on here. So this is flexible enough that you could just pop a tyre lever under it and lever it off, to be fair, which is what I'm going to do, because then you can keep it, and if you ever need to put it back on, you've always got it. So with your basic protection strip removed, this is what your rim looks like, and it looks really clean, but it's not clean enough for tubeless. When you put your tubeless sealant tape on here, you want it to stick and seal perfectly first time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run round this with some brake cleaner. So I'm just going to spray some brake cleaner onto a rag and then wipe this rim down and get it spotless. Incidentally, the Tessa tape that I bought, you can see that that's quite a good fit. So if you're doing this to your Calibre BBB, that is 25mm Tessa tape that I bought there. So it looks like it's going to fit this rim perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to degrease this rim and then I'll start putting the tape on. I'd say of a tubeless conversion, from what I've seen, what I've read and what I understand, getting the tape right and getting the valve sealed are kind of the two big things that you don't want to mess up. So yeah, let's get this degreased. Okay, working from the valve for obvious reasons. Nice big douse of brake cleaner. And we're just going to get right down in there and clean this off. I'm using paper towel because all of my other rags have at some point been exposed to grease, so it would be counterproductive to try and use those. And look, I don't know if you're getting that, but that's essentially a clean rim, and you can see how much dirt is lifting off of it. Ideally, you would want to use something lint free to do this. So what I've been doing this afternoon, because the old bike shed isn't as warm as it could be, I've been using a fan heater in here all afternoon to try and get the new tyre as flexible as possible, because one of the things that you'll want is when you put your new tyre on here, you want this to be as flexible as possible. You want the new tyre to be as flexible as possible. One, so that the bead is nice and round and will fit nicely into the bead on the tyre. But two, just it'll make fitting it a lot easier. Had I thought about it, I think I'd have probably warmed the rims up as well, because I guess that will make the adhesive more effective. But I'm just going to give this a quick wipe down. I'm just going to dash in and get a lint-free rag and just give this a wipe down and just make sure that we're good to go. Okay, so I now feel confident that I'm in a good place to put this sealing tape on the rim. Now, I've even, being super paranoid about this, I've even degreased the scissors I'm using to cut the tape. The tape needs to go into that central rim and it needs to be tight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it kind of one spoke hole past the valve, and then I'm going to overlap it, and you're trying to get it on there. Like I say, keep it taut, because you do not want air bubbles, and you also want it nice and central. So I'm getting a few air bubbles, but I'm squeezing them out through the spoke nipples. Oh, he said nipples in a YouTube video. I guess some little air bubbles are going to be inevitable, but if you get any trapped under the tape, I'm trying to work them down so that they feed down into the valve holes, sorry, the spoke holes, and then trying to just keep this as neat as possible. Now I know all you guys out there that have done this before are probably screaming at YouTube right now, telling me what I'm doing wrong, but that's the great part about this. We live, we learn. I certainly don't know everything, but I want to learn. And you don't learn just by watching YouTube videos. Although if you're a subscriber, you probably do. No, you learn by getting stuck in. So get stuck in. As another YouTuber I follow would say, don't forget to get your hands dirty. You'll notice, uncharacteristically for one of my techie vids, I've not started this with any beer. That could be part of the problem, but I'm renouncing it. Got to lose some weight, got to get serious, and beer is not your friend when you're trying to reduce your waistline. So the waistline's got to go down, the beer's got to go. Now what I'm going to do is, when I've got this rim tape fitted and I've got the valve in place, I'm going to do a dry run. So I'm going to put the tyre on there and make sure that it will pop itself nicely onto the bead, because you really don't want to do that with the sealant in there first time, in my opinion, because if something's not going to fit right, that sealant's messy stuff and it's expensive as well. So one, you don't want to be wasting 100 or so mils of very expensive sealant, and two, you're going to create a problem for yourself in the long run if something isn't fitting right. So what I'm going to do before I do the next tyre is I'm going to warm this tape up in front of the fan heater, and I personally am going to go and stand outside in the rain, because boy, this is tough. You know, everyone goes on about, you see all these videos about, this is the cheapest and easiest way to go tubeless. You know, this might be cost effective, but I know a much easier way to go tubeless, which is the way I did it on the Roscoe. Leave it to a bike shop. These guys know what they're doing, and you should support your local bike shop. Your local bike shop may not be there forever, and if it's anything like my local bike shop, I get exceptional service from those guys. I won't name them and embarrass them, but they know who they are. And yeah, I get a good deal, I get great service. I mean, what more do you want? You know, you go to one of the big sheds, as I've heard them called, and you get people that, I don't know, sometimes it feels like they're just working there. Don't get me wrong, the guys in the bike shop are just working there, but the difference is they just seem a little bit more dialed in. You know, they just seem to want to help a little bit more. And I guess they know, because, you know, they're fighting these bigger companies. They know that they've got to fight harder to keep your custom. And you know what, you might pay a little bit more, but in my experience, it's worth it every time when something goes wrong. And you can just drop in on these guys and say, help, and they will. I know if they're watching this, they're probably cringing. And if you are, Eric, if you found this online, I'll be in to see you Tuesday. Now, when you get back round to the valve area, what you want to do is you don't want to stop at the valve, you want to go past. So I'm going to take this tape, a couple of spoke holes past on an overlap. You'll see what I mean when I get there. So I'm going to take my overlap to there. So let's cut this. Thank you. Put that out. I won't lie to you, that was pretty tough. I wouldn't want to do that again too quickly. So Now what we need to do is we need to make a little hole for the valve to go through. Now speaking from experience with that tyre I tried to fix, you probably don't want to go too big on that hole, and I'm just running around here just to make sure there's no potential for leaks like there. Like I say, I'm pretty sure that if you've got one or two little gaps around the edge, well, the sealant's going to get in there, but you want to start on the best footing that you can. So there's my valve hole there, just here. What I've got, he says, reaching for his glasses, that would be a good idea. What I've got for this job is an old precision screwdriver, and I'm just going to make a hole, not a big one, in the tape there. So let me now take my valve. So there is, with these Petey's valves, be careful when you take that nut off the top, there's a little rubber O-ring that goes with it. So make sure that you've got that, because that little rubber O-ring is going to go to the side of the valve. So I'm going to use the valve itself to finish the hole, which I hope should give it the best chance of sealing. Push it hard through. Just going to... Okay, so I'm just going to slip that little O-ring onto the other side of the valve, and then take my nut. Now you'll see that the nut has a recess on one side, and that recess is for the O-ring. So put your nut on, press really hard on that valve from behind, and then screw this down hand tight. Right, she on. Okay, now before I mount the tyre, two things. Firstly, I'm going to make sure my compressor is nicely full of air, because I'm going to use a shot of compressed air from the compressor to pop the tyre onto the rim. And I'm also just going to put the heater on for a little while again, just to make sure that the tyre is nice and warm. I'm also probably going to stand outside in the rain for a little bit, because that was really hard work, I won't lie to you. So I mentioned that I'd heated up the old bike shed here, and the reason for that is when you buy your tubeless tyres, they'll probably come like this, packaged with a zip tie. Some of them are just with elastic bands, but what can happen is that when they've been zip tied up in their packaging for months and months and months like that, they get a little bit misshapen, and you do not want an uneven bead. So the trick is, get them out of the packaging, unfold them, and you want them to adopt their natural shape, or as close to as a natural shape as possible. Now that isn't too bad, you know, that's pretty round and there aren't any real huge kinks in the bead. But if you had got a kink in the bead, you know, make sure you get the tyre nice and warm and you stretch it out and you work that bead to make sure that it's as even as it possibly can be. So yeah, just unpackaging your tyres. Do it in advance and let them adapt to their natural shape before you put them on the rim. Next most important part of fitting the tyre is to get the logo near the valve. That'll do you. Right. Now, like I say, I'm going to dry fit this. And the reason I'm going to dry fit it is, well, I think I told you the reason. I don't want to waste sealant and time if it doesn't go on. And what I'm doing here is I'm squeezing as much slack into the tyre as I possibly can. So it's taking that slack from the bottom and working it all the way to the top. Go on you go. On you go. On you go. You know you want to. Go on. Yes. I was that close. She's on. There you go. Right. Warm soapy water. Your friend. I'm just gonna get this going all around the bead to try and give that tyre every chance that it's got to pop out and seal for me. There you go. Should be another. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm just having a look at where the air is seeping out. And what I don't want to see is I don't want to see any bubbles forming around my spoke holes. So I'm just going to give them all a quick dousing of this. Right, so there is some leaking through the rim tape, but I guess that's to be expected. Okay, that's what the sealant is for, or part of what the sealant is for. It will seal the bead and everything else, we hope. So. So the other thing I want to check is you have this little line that tells you where the tyre is sitting. Just make sure, and let me see if we can get a close-up of it. It's kind of here. I'm holding on the tyre, there's just a line, and you want to make sure that that is even all the way round, which it is on that side. We're good. Right, I think the thing to do now is to put some sealant in it and get it to try and get it to seal. Now, what the consensus of opinion with tubeless is, don't do it in the morning expecting to ride in the afternoon. You might be lucky and it might seal up first time, but it might take a little bit longer for the sealant to get everywhere it needs to go. So yeah, now the way I'm going to put the sealant in, and let me see if I can get you a close-up on this. Okay, so these PT's valves, there you go. These PT's valves come with a core remover actually built in to the valve cap, which is a really nice idea. There you go. So I'm just going to hold the valve, try and get you in shot. There you go. Hold the valve steady and take the core out. Okay, out comes my core, which should not be lost. Now, the way that I put my sealant in is by using a syringe with a tube. You basically just slip the tube over the end of the valve, fill your syringe with 100 ml of fluid and pump it into the tyre. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so my sealant is nicely shook, and I'm just going to pull in 100 ml of it here. That might seem like a little bit much. In fact, I think they recommend 90 ml for this size of tyre. But I don't know, I live in a world where more is more. So let me just take my tyre here and pull that out of there. Okay. Just get a rag handy, which happens to be one of the wife's old night dresses. Other rags are available. What I find with this particular syringe, it's a very tight fit over these valves, and yeah, especially when you've got it full of sealant, which is slippery stuff. Now, of course, putting 100 ml in, you're going to lose some in this tube anyway, so it makes sense to me. Just pull that off. Okay, put that down there. There's some leaking out. Let's just put that valve core back in and put my adapter back on. Get me airline. Now, before I do that, I'm just going to try and get the sealant all around the inside of the tyre as much as I possibly can. Okay, there should be lots of lovely sealant, which in 30 seconds will probably be all over the place. So, well, job, as they would say, jobbed. That is now a tubeless tyre. It'll probably be flat in the morning. Having said that, like, if you do fit your tubeless kit and you come out in the morning and find the tyres flat, don't be too alarmed. The last one I did, where I was doing the tyre repair on the Roscoe, that was pretty much what happened to that, and it took a couple of days for the sealant to find its way everywhere it needed to be, but yeah, this seems to be sealed. So fitting this can be a little bit messy, and just as a footnote, final bit, which is I think a public service to all my gentlemen subscribers. If your wife comes out into the garage and finds you with a mysterious mess like that on the ground, a video camera running and one of her old night dresses, you can show her this and prove you were just fitting tubeless tyres. Might get you out of the spot. So I hope that was helpful to you. I would class that amongst one of my more successful technical videos. It's been probably 5 minutes since I put the air in, and zut alors, the tyre is still up, and I can hear the sealant sloshing around inside there. So yeah, very happy with that. Thanks for watching this one. The next video, I think I'm going to do a little video. I will have had the caliper, it's not a caliper, it's a calibre. I'll have had the Calibre BBB for about a month in a week or so's time. So somebody did ask if I'd do kind of a real world review. Now, bearing in mind I'm no expert on mountain bikes, but I should be able to give you kind of an ownership view, what it's like to own for the first month at least. So I think that's probably going to be the next video I'm going to put out for you. I'm also planning on doing a video on giving up beer and the benefits of giving up beer. And I mean, come on, you know, no brainer. But yeah, I just thought it'd be really interesting. I've got kind of a video coming together in my head where I'll kind of test myself physically at the beginning, you know, kind of when I'm still prone to a beer, in the middle when I've been a couple of weeks without beer, and probably then at the end of a month without beer. And I just think that would be quite telling for me personally, but also it might just make an interesting video. So yeah, those are a couple that are planned that are coming up. Once again, thank you for watching, and you know, do all the good stuff. Like if you enjoyed this and you don't find me too intensely annoying, please hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.